Hello and welcome everybody. Today we continue studying the Yanish Gambit variation in the right Lopez. And this lesson I would like just to spend for most important development in this quite exciting opening line, so which becomes part of the opening repertoire of the almost all top chess players. Timur Radjabov, Magnus Carlsen, Levon Aronian, Ivan Sokolov and others. So I would like just to start with the first game played by Ivan Sokolov in some rapid tournament in 2007. When after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5, happened bishop takes c6 move. So this move we never studied before. So how to react in this situation? So in the Yanish Gambit, usually we have to play for the better development. In that case, doesn't matter us the material losses. Our main idea is just to get our pieces out as soon as possible. That's why the d takes c6 is the strongest continuation in this position. So we have to allow our bishop to control the f5 square and just ready f takes e4. So after knight takes e5, so black simply could continue, like also possible to just to play queen d4. By the way, this opening line happened in one of the quite early game of played in 1850 by the greatest English player Corin. So after queen d4 and queen h5, g6, suddenly white cannot sacrifice knight take g6. After h take g6, the rook on h8 protected, and white just lost a piece with no compensation. In case white is playing short castling, that won't happen in the game. So black simply reacts with f takes e4, knight takes e5 and knight f6. Black is having two very strong bishops, open position, and after the bishop is coming to d6 short castling, black is developing quite unpleasant pressure over the f file. d3, mistake. Bishop d6. That's exactly what black is looking for. d4, short castling. Bishop g5. So now we already quite familiar with the main ideas in the Yanish Gambit for black, and the next move is not so difficult to find. Queen e8, at the same time attacking the knight on e5 and also intending just to bring the queen somewhere or to g6 or to h5 later on. What to do? What to play? Already white is in some trouble. f4, trying to support this knight on e5, but knight d5. So f4 creates additional holes in white's position. Queen e1, queen h5. So now so black is also intending h6. Let's say after queen takes e4, h6, suddenly white's bishop in a big trouble. And after c4, knight b4, white cannot capture once again, also because of bishop f5 with additional threat knight c2 winning the rook on a1. So all black pieces are very, very active. Bishops are open. Knight a3, c5, continue destroying white's position in the center. Queen takes e4. Finally, white made this mistake, and after h6, he has to say goodbye to the bishop. So the game is almost over after 14 moves. You see how fast black destroyed white's position. But if, let's say, if white plays in this situation, g takes c5 and bishop takes c5 leads to another problem. The bishop on g5 is hanging. So maybe try for white to play in some position bishop h4, but in that case c takes d4 and also not enough. So black is just simply destroying all white's position in the center. So let's see how game continued. Queen takes c4, h6, bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, knight b5, but of course after bishop f5, queen f3, c takes d4, g4, and bishop takes e5. White has to call it a day, since after f takes e5 and bishop d3, white is going to lose the rook on f1 as well. So quite nice victory from the Ivan Sokolov. Once again, because this game was played in some rapid tournament, so his opponent was not so strong and just cannot handle right way how to play against the Yanish Gambit variation. But from now, I would like just to work on more serious continuation, which just part of today's theory and today's practice. So I would say that for the first game which we are playing with this line by Timur Rajabov, he just showed the new and quite interesting ideas of how to develop the initiative in the Yanish variation, Yanish Gambit in the Rai Lopez. So this game between Alexei Shirov and Timur Rajabov was played in Odessa Rapid Tournament in 2007. So after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5. Should be quite serious preparation for this line, because without preparation, as we know, it's quite difficult to play this line. So it seems like Timur Rajabov just made quite interesting improvement in the main lines. So Alexei Shirov continued knight c3, f takes e4, knight takes e4, and not playing d5. So after d5, white of course not going to knight takes e5, but slightly better white's position after knight g3 with idea queen e2, and white is continue threatening black's pawn on e5. So instead of playing d5, so today's theory says that knight f6 is the best continuation. Just black is going to continue developing all his pieces very fast. The queen e2 will be met by d5. So this is already quite serious. Now, if knight takes f6, then g takes f6. Of course, black cannot capture with the queen, obviously, since e5 pawn just unprotected. So queen takes e5 or knight takes e5, winning a pawn and the game as well, since knight on c6 is hanging. But g takes f6, this is quite interesting. So black is going to develop the bishop on g7. The king could be castled short side. Despite the fact white is winning some material after d4, bishop g7, d takes a5, and short castle, black is getting enormous compensation. Look at that. After e takes f6 and queen takes f6. Wow. All black pieces already developed. So black is intending bishop g4, and rook comes to e8. White never can think about leaving the b2 pawn unprotected. So it's not a question about the long castling anymore. So bishop e3 long castling just cannot be played because queen takes b2 with the checkmate. And short castling after bishop g4, black is getting more than a compensation. So great position for black, for just 1 pawn. So, means that white has to forget about capturing on f6, and should have played bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and trying to prevent black bishop from being opened so easily and played e6. Indeed, strong center, 2 bishops, and e6 pawn is going to be lost very soon after rook e8. So black is getting quite a good position. Short castling, rook takes e6, bishop e3, rook e8, freeing the bishop. So now the bishop is coming to g4 very soon. Queen d3, bishop g4, knight h4, c5, rook f2 e1, definitely white cannot capture on c5 because bishop e2 winning exchange. Rook f2 e1, c4, queen d2, f5. So black is just getting very good position, very promising game. Queen, bishop g5, queen d7, 2 bishops, and intending just c5, d4. What white's knight on h4 is doing, black is definitely controls the situation. So Timur Radjabov increased his pressure and won the game after 51 moves. So after this quite exciting opening preparation, so many top players started to analyze this line. So because Radjabov showed the great potential in the Yanish Gambit, also Magnus Carlsen, also Levon Oranyan included this line into the opening repertoire. So let's look a few more games played by Timur Radjabov. So first of all, he played the match in the match against Magnus Carlsen, also in 2007. So Carlsen against Radjabov played also in 2008. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5, and Carlsen decided not to check Radjabov preparation after knight c3 or after d4 or after e takes f5 or after bishop takes c6, and played just solid line after d3, f takes e4, d takes e4, knight f6, short castling, bishop c5. So this we already quite well known all this situation. So now if white captures on bishop takes e6, after b takes e6, knight takes e5 and short castling, black is getting quite strong compensation, and this line also we are going to study later on. So instead white played queen e2, having in mind quite easy, quite simple trick combination. So in case of short castling, white is suddenly winning the piece after queen c4 check. d6, queen c4, queen e7. So black is intending to bring the bishop on e6. Knight c3, but now we cannot play bishop e6 because knight d5, quite unpleasant idea. Indeed, bishop d7, bishop g5, a6, bishop takes c6, and b takes c6. Already we can say black solved all his opening problems. So black's position probably already slightly better. So Carlsen, with the full understanding, just trying to exchange some pieces and to get into more simple situation. Bishop e3, trying to get rid of black's two bishops advantage. Bishop takes e3, f takes e3, queen f7. So black is just preparing the castle. In case of queen takes f7, king takes f7, white is having quite unpleasant endgame. Knight e2, short castling. Queen takes f7, king takes f7, knight c4, king e7, knight a5, rook f2 b8. So black is slightly better, and the Rajabov continued to play this position for another 15 moves, but finally the game finished the draw. But we can really understand how good was Rajabov preparation. He beat Grandmaster Alexei Shirov with black, and then made another draw against Magnus Carlsen, also without big difficulties. And now another test against Vishy Anand, world champion, played in Linares, Morelia Linares super tournament in the last year. So the question that Anand is having today may be one of the deepest opening preparation. So his opening repertoire is so wide that he can play any kind of opening lines, and definitely he was ready for Rajabov surprising opening line. Yanis Gambit and Zray Lopez. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5, d3. So Anand is following the line which we just studied, line which played by Magnus Carlsen. D takes f4, f takes e4, d takes e4, knight f6, short castle and bishop c5. So as I said before, black is ready here to sacrifice material. Bishop takes c6. Of course we are not going to capture with a d pawn, since after queen takes d8, king takes d8 and knight takes e5, white is intending knight f7, and of course keep in much better position. B takes c6, knight takes e5, short castling. So this one of the most important position maybe, which Rajabov had to analyze very carefully. Black is having pawn down, but threatening knight takes e4, threatening queen e8, attacking the knight on e5. Indeed, what to play after bishop g5? The move which was played by Anand. Queen e8, bishop takes f6, rook takes f6, knight d3 and bishop b6. Knight d3, sorry, and here Rajabov probably prepared here this important move, bishop d4. After knight d2 and bishop a6, black is having two bishops and very strong compensation for the sacrificed pawn. Anand cannot find here any serious ways for improving his position, and the game finished drawing after 22 moves. Rook b1, d6, c4, c5. So now pay attention, black got strong bishop on d4 supported by the pawn. So black's bishop from a6 will find another diagonal on b7, when black's queen is coming very soon close to the king side. The rook is ready to go to f8, continue pressing white's pawn on f2. So white hardly even could move the knights, because if you move knight from d2, then e4 pawn is gone. If you move pawn from D3 some words, and F2 pawn is another problem, another weakness in white's position. B4. Anand is trying to play very actively, but Timur Rajabov just answered Queen F7, looking at the pawn on C4, King H1. So white is just accepting already that black would capture on C4, but of course Timur Rajabov is finishing his development, increasing the pressure over the F file. Rook F8, F4, which leads to the simplifications after bishop takes C4, knight takes C4, queen takes C4. So it's quite easy to understand that white lost all his advantage. D takes C5, B takes C5, E5, rook B6. The position now very complicated. Rook C1, Queen D5, Queen F3, and here Timur Rajabov played C6 and offered draw to his opponent. The problem is that black is intending C5, C4. What else white can play? If white is trying to make the combination, like knight takes C5, bishop takes C5, queen takes D5, e takes D5, and rook takes C5, which could be quite serious attempt to fight for the advantage. So black could first of all capture on F3, and after rook takes F3, bishop takes C5. Suddenly white cannot leave the back rank. After rook takes C5, rook B1, the game is over. So after queen F3 and C6, move number 32, Rajabov offered draw to his opponent, and Anand just didn't find any way to fight for advantage. So black is having very promising position and threatening C5, C4 with a strong bishop on D4, feeling quite good, quite safe in this position. So you can ask, what happened? Why not just simply queen takes D5, C takes D5, and knight takes C5? In that case, black is first of all playing bishop E3, intending white's pawn on F4. And after rook C3, rook takes F4. Wow! Once again, black is using white's problem with the back rank. Rook takes F4 cannot be played because rook B1, and the checkmate is coming. So I have to be very careful in this situation. So once again, Timur Rajabov very successfully defend his best turns in the Yanisha Gambit variation in the Roy Lopez. Now let's look at one more game played in between Valerien Pons and Levon Aronian from the Monte Carlo Amber Rapid Tournament. So after E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5, F5. So Valerien Pons probably was quite surprised by the Aronian's choice and played quite simple way. Bishop takes C6, D takes C6, and knight C3. Trying to play for the black's isolated pawn on E5. Indeed, after F takes, knight takes, and knight F6, queen E2, Aronian simply answered bishop G4. Continue exactly according to the main strategic ideas of the line we are studying, Yanisha Gambit. So where for black is so important to move all his pieces to the active positions and just to rapidly to develop all his forces and to make castle very soon. So all these ideas we're already studying for so many lessons already, and I guess you are also familiar with the main ideas, main intents in the gambit situation like that one. H3, bishop h5, d3. So white is playing very solid, but with a solid play it's quite difficult to achieve anything special. Queen d5. So black is playing aggressively. g4, bishop f7, knight c3, just simply continue developing. Bishops come to b4. The problem is that if now white is playing queen takes e5, check, queen takes e5 and knight takes e5 after bishop d5, and then short castling, and then rook comes to e8, white is in big trouble. So knight takes e5 also cannot be played because queen takes h1. So also after queen takes e5, I have another idea. What if I just simply play king f8 with the idea rook e8? And white simply cannot capture on d5 because bishop takes d5, and wow, look at that pin. So unpleasant. Short castle, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, e4. And here after d takes e4, queen takes e4, queen takes e4, knight takes e4, white got some slightly better game. Since after rook e1, the king is in the center, and after short castling, rook takes e4 and bishop d5, white plays knight d2, bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, rook e8, and the position got extremely unbalanced. Since after knight c5, so black rook came into this back rank after king g2 and rook d8. So black is intending to bring the other rook on d1. So after the very sharp complications, the game finished with a victory for Levon Aronian after 87 moves. So we can see how complicated situation in the main line of the Yanish Gambit. And finally, I would like just to show you that 6 months ago, the Peter Swidler played against Timur Ajabov in the Grand Prix tournament in Baku 2008, and maybe this one of the quite important tries for white to fight for advantage. So white Swidler, and black Rajabov. So it was already not a surprise that Timur Rajabov played this line for so many times. So Swidler also should be quite good prepared for this outcome. So after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5, and g3. F takes e4, g takes e4, and knight f6. Short castling, bishop c5, queen d3. So today we came to the conclusion that queen d3 with the idea to stop blacks from castling, intending queen c4, force to play d6. In that case, after queen c4, white is trying to play for slightly better position. So in that game, Timur Ajabov came with the novelty. He played immediately knight d4. So now, black is already intending to attack this bishop on b5. So maybe to play c6 later on, and then to play d6. So it's a good question, of course, what could happen in case of knight takes e5. I believe after c6 and queen e7, or knight takes b5, queen takes b5, and queen e7, Rajabov just evaluates this position as a quite serious compensation for black for a pawn. Swidler decided to continue in the mainstream. Knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and knight d2. But after a6, bishop c4, queen e7, knight f3, and bishop a7, all black pieces found quite good squares. And next, black is intending just to play d6 and bring out this bishop, and maybe long castling. So position is quite okay for black. Knight h4, d6, bishop g5, bishop e6. So now if bishop takes e6, queen takes e6, then black's with the next move short castling, completing the development with a very good position. So Swidler is trying to keep two bishops after knight f5. Indeed, bishop takes e5, e takes e5, and long castling. I could consider this situation as probably equal. Despite the fact white is having two bishops, the position is quite closed, and the black is intending to send this bishop away from g5 after h6. From other hand, how to stop d6, d5. So it's almost forced for white to play bishop e6 check after king b8, c4, h6, bishop e3, bishop takes e3, f takes e3, and knight h7. Black is intending knight g5, attacking the white's bishop on e6. Nothing special for white. So the game finished a draw after 41 move. So once again, Timur Rajabov just showed the interesting way how to solve the problem in the Yanisha Gambit variation. So even today, this opening line is quite often played in the super tournaments. Look, like Baku Grand Prix, Linares Morelia Super Tournament. So another Grand Slam final, another game played between Anand and Carlsen just 2 months ago. So what we can say is that still Yanisha Gambit, which was discovered more than 160 years ago, is quite serious and quite good weapon for black against the right Lopez defense. So I wish you would include this opening line into your repertoire. We studied the main ideas, main theoretical lines, and also today's theory, what exactly happened, what exactly going on in the Yanisha variation. I wish you all the best and success in your chess career, in your chess games. And see you next time. If you have any question, you can contact me by www.chesslessons.wordpress.com. So you could ask me any question regarding any gambit we already studied. And see you next time. Bye.